Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome back to the 53206 cast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Meg.
And Meg, this is a podcast.
It is.
This is a podcast if you want to learn more about what it is like living in the inner city. We live in the inner city of Milwaukee, but I don't think anything that happens in Milwaukee is all that
different from other inner cities.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little ignorant to that, but I would assume it's kind of more or less the same. You get areas of concentrated poverty, and that brings about all sorts of challenges.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Meg, today was a good day working out in the garden.
Yes. Big shout out to Weber's Greenhouse. So I feel like I always want to, if there's a new listener, we are on the team that helps run We Got This. We Got This is a community garden over on 9th and Ring that just does amazing things for the community. And currently We Got This has over or around, or maybe exactly
roughly
14 formerly vacant lots that are just turned into gardens, are turned into spaces that are changed over from being a liability, meaning it's going to get dumped on over and over again to an asset.
53206, the zip code, has over 800 vacant lots. Most of them used to have houses or buildings or businesses on them, and at some point, the building was no longer habitable or useful, and it was torn down. And so there's lots of them, lots of lots in the zip code. And when you say they're a liability, I mean, they really are. They are owned by the city of Milwaukee. They are not producing tax income. They cost the city, it's not a ton of money, but it costs the city to cut the grass and shovel and do these other things. And also they're just nothing. They're not useful pieces of property.
Yeah. So kind of going with what I was just saying, so today was one of the days that we picked up plants that people donated. People basically can donate money to Weber's Greenhouse, which Weber's is an incredible. It's the only nonprofit greenhouse in the city. So wonderful place. So people can donate there, and then We Got This gets the plants. And so today was one of the first days that we were planting plants from Weber's. So we planted tomatoes, snacking peppers, greens, both collard and mustard, which is exciting. And probably some other things that I'm forgetting. But yeah, so that was just exciting to get some things in the ground. We tried kind of a new
technique.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I appreciate you. Yes, a new technique where we actually put down craft paper on the garden beds, and then we shovel, dig out the hole where the plant goes, and then that's supposed to mitigate weeds.
Okay. Does the paper ever go away?
It does. Within a month or two.
Oh.
Yeah, it just decomposes into the
great.
soil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very, very busy trying to become more organized. So with We Got This, like last year we started the summer program. We had roughly 60, 65 kids coming out. And then by the end of the summer, that amount doubled. And so there was a lot of kids coming, a lot of kids working, and a lot of stuff that you have to have organized, tools and things. Most kids aren't planting tomato plants with their bare hands. They usually use a shovel. Yeah. And so you have to have a place for all of those tiny shovels. You have to know where they are, and it's it's a whole big thing. Yeah. So got a lot of the organizational stuff done today, but we also finished putting in all of the planter boxes.
Nice.
So all of the planter boxes are now in. Well, maybe there'll be some more, but
all
the ones that we had planned on putting in are now in. And Meg, one of the things, I talk to the kids while we're working. Yeah. And you say, oh, what do you want to, what do you think you might want to do? And they never have. Yeah. No child ever has an idea of what they want to do when they're 14 or 15. I mean, I suppose some do, and then whatever. But most kids just, they don't. And they don't know, what type of job might give them the type of income that they want to have. And so you gotta have these conversations. I didn't know when I was 16. I didn't know what I wanted my income to be.
I always like that your mom was like, all right, you're gonna go to the library and find out
right.
what you're
I'm
gonna
go to the library and read a book about jobs.
Yeah.
And then pick a job.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like it's just so fun that like, that's how you chose to like, that's how you chose to be an engineer and go to Milwaukee School of Engineering. It's just a funny.
Yeah.
It's a funny,
I don't know that strategy is better or worse than any other strategy I've seen employed.
Yeah. I think it's really funny too, because my dad was he was an advisor for colleges. So like he was very helpful. So I feel like I feel like it's just different. It's different and great. We both ended up in good places, but it's a funny thought to think like you're just going to go and decide one day.
Yeah.
I don't think I decided ever. Like I don't.
Well, that was a conversation we'd have at schools a lot of times. It was like, you want, the kids that are going to go to college, and really, any graduating senior should have a plan of some sort of plan for what they're going to do. And so, any graduating senior, you sit them down and you're like, well, what do you want to be when you're grown up, even though technically I suppose you are now grown up. But they have no idea. And it takes a lot of thought and a lot of conversations to figure out what do you want to be doing for 40 or 50 hours a week. So, you have these conversations with the kids, and, a lot of them are at least semi-interested in construction, but I think it's because I've been working with this group building these boxes. And talking to them about, well, here's like what you could make if you did this type of work, not build boxes, but took the same skills that you used to build a box and go build a bathroom or a basement or whatever.
Or a deck.
Lots of things you can build. A porch, a garage. We could just keep naming things that you can build. But so I was working with the group today, and I when I think about the things, there's very predictable things that we do. We got this, like the building of the planter boxes or the planting of things or the cultivating of the vegetables. They're all just like little skills. And you can teach people little skills, and then they can decide if they like doing that little skill and then add on skills into the future. And so so we got into the end of the day, and there was 10 boxes to kind of connect with longer 12-foot 2x10s. And I just had the thought, like, I've done a lot of these this spring already. And I would love it if the kids could do this on their own. And I was like, well, okay, they kind of know, they've watched me set them up, and they know what to be careful for in terms of spacing, and so that it looks straight, and measure off the sidewalk and these kinds of things. And I thought, they probably could do most of this on their own. Nice. So I got two. They look like a drill, but it's an impact. It's for shooting in screws, basically. Okay. So I got two impact guns out, and I said, well, why don't you guys try, to put it together. And I watched, and they struggled, just like anybody would.
Just like I would.
Sure, you or anybody else. But by the end, they had it. Nice. They had it down, and
that's exciting.
And they, were checking distances, and they kind of had the process set up, and so they installed the last 10
that's super exciting.
On their own.
That's cool.
It took us longer, but still, they really did seem to enjoy it.
That's cool.
But that's one of the things that we try as much as we can. We try to do at We Got This, or really any time you're working with any young person. The kids that are going to be successful in the future are the kids that at least have some plan that is rooted in any kind of real world experience, because they might like doing that type of work, and there's a need to do that type of work, and you can make a lot of money doing that type of work, and so that's a pathway that 100% they can all access that.
Yeah. Can I tell you something cool that happened with the kids that I was working with?
Sure.
Yeah. So I was working, like I said, kind of doing this new technique. Thank you. And so one of the kids, I was kind of like having her try it out and just make sure it worked, because like I've done it in my own garden, but I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work like large scale, and I don't know if it's going to take too long. We'll see. And so she was trying it out, and it was working pretty well. And then we were kind of moving on to like, more people were doing this technique, and I was having her teach everyone. And it was really cool because we had these volunteers come, and they were coming, they were teachers from, where were they from?
West Dallas Central.
Thank you. Yeah. So they're teachers from West Dallas Central. And I was like, okay, to this girl, I was like, okay, can you go show them how to do it? And I just thought it was a really neat opportunity that she could, she was basically like leading these adults.
Sure.
And, she had this knowledge that she was, just able to teach them. I just thought it was a neat kind of, just a neat thing she was able to do. And she did a good job with it. Yeah. And like the plants looked great. So it was a neat opportunity.
It's great.
And I think, like you said, like it's teaching her, just more responsibility. It's teaching her like management skills. Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah. 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 Well, Meg, you had kind of you just sort of started to mention something to me about the bar. It's not a bar anymore.
Yeah.
For the longest time, so we moved into the neighborhood in 2006, and probably for the first 10, maybe not 15. I think it's been closed.
I was trying to think about when.
Probably closed like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So for the first 12 years that we lived here, we lived 3 houses down from a bar.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that.
No.
It's a pain in the ass because bars close at the time that you're normally asleep.
Yeah.
And people aren't like I don't really think people are leaving the bar super quiet. Like, you just don't do that.
They're not being quiet.
Yeah, no.
Well, I think the thing I would get annoyed about the most is that there were so many like beer bottles, and I'm like, are they taking these beer bottles out of?
I don't know.
I was always like, how are there so many beer bottles like outside my house?
Yeah.
So, but
maybe you needed a beer to get from the bar to your car. That's a possibility.
Maybe. Yeah.
But so this bar has it. The guy that owned the bar was upside down on the building. He owed more than it was worth.
Okay.
And so he gave it back to the bank, basically.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody else, kind of through that process, then somebody bought it. I don't know if it was like a short sale. That's what a short sale is, when you kind of like manage that and find or you've got a buyer lined up. I don't know if that was the case, but anyways, so another group of people bought the bar and started renovating it. Kind of, it's like we see this a lot in the neighborhood. Like someone will purchase a building and then they'll start doing something to the building.
Yeah.
I mean, in all of the steps of renovating a building, demo is the first step, but it's also the easiest and doesn't really require a whole lot of skill
and money.
And so you can basically get anybody to come demo your building, the inside of it for you, and then you realize, oh, now I have to put it back together, which actually does take a tremendous amount of skill and a lot of money. So this building was bought, the inside was demoed, and it's just kind of sad. I mean, it's been almost a year.
I was going to say, it's probably been a year.
Yeah, and so when that happens, people, there's lots of people in the neighborhood that, I mean, if you live in the poorest zip code, which 53206 is the poorest zip code in the state of Wisconsin, you would expect people that live there to live below the poverty line. And, we have a huge number of people that live below the poverty line, but some people live even, below the poverty line, to the point where, there's really not, there's really no income coming in. I'm not an expert on government assistance. I don't really know really anything about that. But I do know that, there's a subset of the population here that really does just exist on literally almost nothing.
Yeah.
And, when a building when the renovation process has started on a building and it sits and it's obvious that nothing is going on in the building, that's when, people that really have no income or aren't like the kids at the garden that have maybe some of these experiences that will lead them towards, finding work that they enjoy, because that would be the ultimate goal, or work that can sustain themselves and whoever else they choose to have that income sustained. So we have a subset of the population here that is going to take advantage of a building that is just sitting and no work is being done to it.
Yeah. And so I've been walking by let's just call it the bar.
Sure. Brothers 2, that's the name of the bar.
Brothers 2 bar.
I always wondered where was Brothers 1?
Where's Brothers 1? Yeah. So I've been walking by there. I mean, I walk by there a lot because it's like if I'm going out my front door and then I'm going to the garden,
right down the street,
which I have plants in the hoop house. So I'm I'm
going
there like once a day. Maybe every other day, but it's regularly. And so I feel like I've been seeing people that are, and I'm kind of like, I never, if somebody's doing something and I don't know what they're doing, like, I'm not going to call them out on it because I'm like, maybe they're supposed to be doing it.
Sure.
I feel like I never know like how renovations work, so I'm like, I'm not going to be the one that's like policing people that I don't know that, maybe are supposed to be doing that. So a few times I've seen people that are taking the siding off of this bar and they're putting it like in there. They like have a shopping cart. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm kind of like, I know they're struggling. Like, I'm like, it's not hurting anybody, so I'm like, I don't know where the people who own the bar is. I don't have their number. We haven't seen them in a year. And again, like I just feel like I'm not the person. I'm like, maybe they're getting paid to do this. Maybe probably not. But again, I don't like to yell at people. Especially,
most people don't show up to work with a shopping cart.
Yeah. But I also, like, as a white person, I'm like, I don't want to yell at somebody about something that I don't know. I don't know them. I don't know.
I would say my attitude is the neighborhood is going to take the course of the neighborhood is going to evolve, and natural things are going to occur in the neighborhood. And if the building hasn't been touched in a year, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not particularly concerned about it.
Yeah. So I've been seeing these people who are taking these pieces of siding and, doing something with them. And so the other day we were just kind of sitting right next to the bar, discussing something. And, I looked over and I was just asking you, like, how much is a piece of siding? And you said 25 cents.
Well, sure. Aluminum. So we have a lot of people in the neighborhood that collect scrap metal, because you can take scrap metal to the recycling yard, and then they pay you for the metal. Like you would see, I don't see it as much anymore, but you see people collecting cans. So you get your bag of cans and you get $5, $10, whatever it is, and it's always based on what the scrap prices are. So and we have actually a number of people in the neighborhood that collect scrap. Yeah. To the point where, Wait. No. To the point that one guy who he had a big truck. And do you remember what his business card said? Oh, the junk man.
The junk man. Yeah, he literally, he would go up and down the alley and he'd be like, let me know if you got something. And he would hand me his card. And I'm like,
junk man was great.
Oh man, he was the best. But like, I feel like that shows like we have people where like that's the junk man. That's his job.
Yeah. And you're not. It's not a very lucrative.
Sure.
It's not a very lucrative job.
Yeah.
But
it keeps you busy, and
keeps you busy, and you get a couple $.
Yeah.
So so scrap metal is bought for scrap price, and the scrap price is set by the yard, by the scrap yard.
Okay.
And so I looked, and like, what's the average aluminum scrap price? Like 74 cents a pound or something. So it's up. It's scrap prices are doing better. They were way down for a while, but they're up now.
Okay.
But so you asked like, well, like what do you get for a piece of aluminum siding?
Yeah.
And aluminum siding comes in like 12. I think it's like 12'6" is like standard siding length, 12 feet 6 inches, whatever.
Okay.
And piece of siding weighs a couple of pounds max, but you're probably not pulling, when you pull a sheet of siding off a building, it tears, and you're not pulling a full sheet. So you're probably, it wouldn't shock me if painted siding, you're getting a quarter a sheet, like for the chunk that you're pulling off, basically. Yeah. And so maybe you could put $5 worth of siding in your shopping cart,
Well, and I think the thing that like just really I was like kind of like blown away that like somebody would do that for that little of a price. And I think like living in the poorest zip code in the state, you like get these glimpses of someone's life and you're like, it's just so different than mine that I have no, like, I can't even like comprehend it. And it's just so like, it just made me really, again, just my eyes were open to that there are so many people who lack. And that's just, it's like it's the way our society is.
Sure. Like I don't take the scrap metal in. Like we have a fair amount of scrap metal that comes out of the building when we renovate it.
Okay.
Big piles.
Yeah.
Enough to where I probably could take it.
Sure.
And go do that. But for me, if it takes me an hour to load it and go there, and it ends up being about like what I could make in an hour in scrap, well, I'm probably just going to give it to somebody else. And the reason why I'm kind of explaining that way is that's not the mindset that many of the people in our neighborhood would have. Is where like, I'm just, I'm saying me, I'm just tired and I don't want to take it to the scrapyard.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't have a lot going on, and now I'm speaking as somebody else. Okay. I don't have a lot going on. I don't really have a way to make an income.
Yeah.
And because of that, this is actually a pretty good option for me. And I'm always, I always remember back when I was working in schools, we would say things like that a lot. Like this is this child's best option. Yeah. They reacted the best way they know how, or the parent, even though maybe it was a little different, say it nicely, a little different than how maybe, Alex would have responded. That was the best that they could do in the situation. And we have a lot of that. Like you might not understand why, but for that individual, that actually does make a lot of sense. I can go over here. I can pull this off. I can walk 30 blocks probably to the nearest scrapyard, and that is a good option. And that's a reminder of the differences in some people's circumstances.
Well, and I think like you talk a lot about like the way we have organized ourselves, and like this is just one of the realities of how our city, how our structure, how the world, how America is organized, that there are people with haves and there are people with have-nots, and they're right down the street. Like they're in our we probably see them more than we know.
Yeah, I would say that. And then I would say, too, like, one of the things, and this is kind of what the book Bad Neighborhoods is all about. Meg, I got...
which is the book you wrote.
Yeah, it's the book I wrote. If anybody's interested, first off, we'll give you a copy. Just email contact@wegotthis.mke.com. That's fine. I'll just give you one. If you did want to buy it, you can. You gotta go to Amazon because they do the publishing. They can publish it for free. And so, I don't know, whatever it costs, whatever. It's not a lot, but like I said, I'll just give you one if you want.
Okay.
But like that's essentially the point of the book is that, we people with means, which is like most people
that are listening to the podcast.
Yeah. Most people most people in general, if you live a middle class lifestyle, you think that, and you're not wrong for thinking that, but you think that, I'm going to aspire up towards living in a certain spot, a certain location. And while that is all good and great, it separates us from some of the needs that exist in the world, and it just makes it hard to meet those needs. Like Meg, I just remember back, during coronavirus was 2020, and that was right after George Floyd was murdered, and there was just so many people that were like realizing like I care, first off, and I want to do something, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's that separateness that makes it challenging to know what to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not next door to you. To travel to it. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that separateness just makes it hard. First off, to be able to empathize with somebody, or even just to see what the other part of the world lives like. Yeah. And, then it makes it hard to empathize, and it makes it hard to come up with a plan, to do something.
Yeah.
And, not to always just kind of plug We Got This, but, when the group of people that run We Got This are thinking about how we want to structure things, it's called We Got This because it's always been called We Got This. But part of it is because there's a whole bunch of people that have either time, maybe not time, but time, resources, abilities, and they have these things and they want to share them in a space that may not have them.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that feeling is something that's very powerful. And whatever you believe in as a higher power, I think that, that's that higher power telling you like there's more to life than collecting things and bringing your 401k balance up. There's more to life than that.
Yeah.
And part of what, just people in general, I believe, and I think a lot of other people believe, is to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And you do that by actually making the world a better place. And you can do that in a million different ways. And, I just always want to point, back over to We Got This, that, we're happy to help facilitate whatever it is that you're interested in and passionate about and good at. Or if you say, yes, we like the work that you're doing and we want to help, pay the kids, to do that work. We're always happy to help figure that out. Do that? Sure. Yes. So yeah, if you were interested, well, first off, you can just always reach out at contact@wegotthismke.com. We actually get a fair amount of people reaching out, saying, I do this thing and I want to do more of this thing, or, hey, I already do this and I want to do it for good. Like, that's great.
Hey, I want, like, my company wants to come and volunteer. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on out. So you can always just reach out at contact@wegotthismke.com. Or if you were like, okay, I don't really have a lot of time, but I've accumulated enough resources in my life that I'd like to put other kids, or specifically kids, in a position to learn the skills that would help them to be able to do the same thing, namely just like know how to work, know how to show up on time, like get assigned a task and complete the task without complaining, whatever that is. You can donate at www, very important, www.wegotthismke.com. And
it's great because there you can obviously donate money, but then you can donate plants through, like I was saying before, Weber's Greenhouse, or there's an Amazon wish list. So that's just for like a lot of it right now is for the lunches for Saturdays. So yeah, lots of different ways to just support the kids in the community.
Yeah, big shout out to Donna. She's a lady that I'd worked with for it was like 4 or 5 years ago we worked together. But she's a gardener, into gardening.
Yeah.
And she grew too many tomato plants, which is great. Yeah. I love stuff like that because it's almost like, she's not going to just like throw the tomato plant. You don't just grow
a gardener
tomatoes
doesn't do that.
And throw them away. And so, she had I'm putting in quotes, a problem, too many tomatoes. And, we have thousands of square feet of growing space that needs
tomatoes.
Plants. Tomatoes would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Meg, when we were putting in those new boxes at it's so bad with names. We need to get better names. I was going to say the newest.
The Concordia.
New garden. Yeah, Concordia Garden. Yeah. That's fine. Somebody came by, asked what was going to go in there. Yeah. And he said, and I said, well, I don't know. What do you want? He said, tomatoes. Like, great. Got lots of tomatoes.
That's funny.
And then at the liquor store garden, same thing. People say, well, what are you going to grow?
Yeah.
Glad to see something going here.
That's
nothing.
Neat.
And tomato, all the it's great.
Yeah.
All the stuff.
I do have a shout out if anybody has extra cucumber plants, because Weber's is out. So I grew some from seed, but they all died. So we need some cucumbers. If you got any cucumber plants, I'd appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else before we
go?
No,
that's a wrap.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.